shortage of musicals, plays, and performances to choose from. So keep an eye on the theatre scene.
Then there is K-design, blending traditional and modern elements.
K-fashion, leading trends.
K-beauty, which takes beauty to the next level.
K-content, receiving praise the world over. Watch it, experience it, and enjoy it.
It's January 15th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the warrant to detain President Yoon over his martial law order. Investigators headed to the president's residence early on Wednesday morning to detain the impeached president following their failed attempt earlier this month. And the investigators say they are not considering Yoon's voluntary appearance as an option. President Yoon's first impeachment trial hearing took place on Tuesday, only to end after only 4 minutes due to his absence. The session will resume on Thursday when the court can proceed without him. Pentagon Chief Nominee Pete Hegseth has depicted North Korea as a nuclear power, while also stressing the need for U.S. allies to increase burden sharing in pursuit of what he called healthy partnerships. Investigators are back at the impeached South Korean president's residence this morning to try to detain him once more over his martial law declaration. Without further ado, we head over to the site with our Choi Min-jung standing by. Min-jung, we are learning that the investigators have moved very into the residence, but we are yet to see him or hear whether he has been detained, right?
Right, Dami. While we hear that President Yoon has not yet been detained, he is expected to appear soon. The second attempt to detain President Yoon began early morning, marking yet another historic moment in South Korea's political landscape. The operation commenced at around 5 a.m. following days of tense negotiations and preparation, which are still unfolding as we speak. The CIO says it is currently coordinating the warrant execution and not considering Yoon's voluntary appearance. Approximately 1,000 personnel, including members of the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials and police, are deployed to the presidential residence here in Gangneung-do. This follows lessons learned from the first attempt on January 3rd, where 150 police and CIO staff were significantly outnumbered by over 200 presidential security personnel who successfully blocked access to the residence. In today's operation, however, authorities appeared better prepared. At around 7:30 a.m., a few dozen investigators passed through defense lines in the residence by using ladders to go over the buses that were parked as barricades. The team managed to secure entry without any major incidents, though initial resistance was reported.
So we don't know yet when or how Yoon will show up. But let's say he ends up being detained sooner or later. What lies ahead for the troubled leader in terms of procedural steps?
President Yoon will likely undergo questioning later on today, and the CIO stated that Yoon will be transported to the CIO headquarters in Gwacheon, where he will be held for questioning. The focus will be on allegations related to the imposition of martial law on December 3rd, and he's wanted for questioning in several investigations, including accusations of insurrection. Meanwhile, President Yoon's legal team has been reiterating that the investigators' arrest attempt is illegal.
Again, all these will take place if he is detained within the day. Now, Min-jung, I can feel and really hear the heated tension in the area. Tell us how things are there at the moment in Yongsan.
Right, Tammy, emotions are running high and the atmosphere here remains intense. Large crowds from both supporters and opponents of President Yoon have gathered near their residence, with police estimating around 6,500 supporters of Yoon. Additional barricades have been set up around the residence, though the bulk of the security operation is expected to shift to Gwacheon, where protests are also expected later today. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates on our next newscast. Back to you, Dami.
All right, thank you, Min-jung, for that update. That was Choi Min-jung reporting live from the presidential area in Hannam-dong. So, the South Korean investigators are firm on executing the warrant, saying Yoon's voluntary appearance is not on the table. We turn to Professor Baek Eun-seok to discuss more. Good morning.
Very good morning to you.
So Yoon's lawyer says he's holding negotiations with investigators over Yoon's voluntary appearance. But according to the investigators, that's not an option at all.
Right. Negotiating whether President Yoon will appear voluntary or not should have taken place earlier. Once the court issues arrest warrant, the question is whether the warrant is to be executed or not. And the investigators are already there to execute the warrant, so a voluntary appearance is not an option at this stage.
Right. Investigators are saying that they've been fed up with all the trials that they've gone through before. Now, investigators on President's side are also negotiating the process of executing the actual warrant. What options and negotiating deals are they discussing here?
Once again, once the warrant is issued, the question is only about whether the warrant is to be executed or not, and it has to be executed. So what seems to be proposed by the president's side is not timely at this stage. Now, once arrest warrant is to be executed, what follows is for the president to move to CIO office in Gwacheon. And probably there is some room for negotiating in terms of what follows, given President Yoon being president, whether he should be treated somewhat differently. But at the same time, this is a country of rule of law, so everyone has to be equal before the law. So I think that there's some room for negotiating the exact form of procedure to follow. But executing the warrant itself at this stage is not an option at all.
Well, Professor Baek, this is the country's leader we're talking about. I mean, will he be treated any differently during the process of being detained and also being taken to the CIO's office after being detained for questioning?
Once again, once the arrest warrant is executed, then the CIO should seek or should decide whether to seek detention warrant. So arrest is being done at this stage, and then detention is the next step. And there is some room for negotiating whether president is to be detained at CIO office for further investigation, or once he is arrested, whether detention is to be sought or not. I think that there is room for negotiating over that very matter. But once again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a country of rule of law. Everyone has to be equal before the law. So given that President Yoon is a president, there may be some factors to consider, but at the same time, the overall procedure has to be executed. equally for everybody, I suppose.
Okay, then Yoon will be taken to the CIO's office in Gwacheon once he's detained for questioning. Now, he will be questioned for up to 48 hours, right? Let's talk about the process in detail after, how Choi Min-jung reported on that.
Yeah, once again, there are two stages. One is arrest, and the next one is detention. So what is being done is whether to arrest President Yoon, which is being done now. And once arrest is made, President Yoon will be taken to CIO office in Gwacheon. And then within the 48 hours, the CIO has to decide whether to seek detention warrant. And once detention warrant is issued, then President Yoon will stay in the CIO office for further investigation. It is up to the CIO whether to seek a detention warrant or not. I think that's something that that can be negotiated. But once again, President Yoon's volunteer appearance as opposed to arrest is not a live option at this stage. And given what President Yoon has been done, which is not very responding to any of the investigators' attempts or efforts, we have to see whether CIO would actually seek, as a next step, detention warrant.
Well, Professor Beck, another major development that happened during this morning is that the police say they secured acting chief of Presidential Security Service Kim Sung-won into custody. Was he really taken into custody?
And again, I'm just following the media coverage of it. It seems that that has not happened yet, but arrest warrant was issued against the official that you just mentioned, who is number 2 man in the PSS, Presidential Security Service.
Right.
What seems to be the biggest difference between this time, the second attempt to arrest President Yoon, and the first time seems to be the change within PSS, Presidential Security Service. As you know, the head of PSS resigned after reporting to CIO voluntarily, and he's cooperating with the police for the investigation. And so the official that you mentioned is a number 2 man, and he is considered to be the most committed in resisting the arrest warrants to be executed. And so arrest warrant for him has already been issued. And there was some report earlier today that he was arrested, but apparently that was not the case. And so the biggest difference this time seems to be what happened within PSS. The first time there was a very strong resistance, and this time it seems that the resistance is much subdued,
Right.
Other than number 2 man being still committed to resisting arrest warrant. But the rest of PSS situation seems to be very different this time, and that seems to be the biggest difference.
Professor Beck, before I let you go, one more question. And I know it's very hard to tell at the moment whether Yoon will actually show up. And now, if he does show up within the day, do you think he'll show up on foot, by car? What method do you think he's considering at the moment?
Maybe that may be the one of the issues that are being negotiated, given he's being president, and also I think one of his main concern is how he would be seen by his supporters.
Right.
And so again, it's hard to tell exactly what will happen, but I guess President Yoon's side would have to. Would like to take advantage of whatever things that he can employ at this stage in order to maintain his image as president, and at the same time sending out a message that he has been sending out, I guess through unofficial channels, that this entire investigation, as well as impeachment proceedings, are unfair, illegal, et cetera, against him. But again, I just hope and really strongly wish that President will do what he has to do. But let me add just one more thing here. Regardless of whether he is arrested or not, whether he's detained or not, the impeachment proceeding will go forward.
Right.
Because President's presence at the impeachment trial is not required. So without his presence, that proceeding will go ahead.
Right, they are two different, separate matters, rather. Professor Begg, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, in the meantime, like Professor Begg mentioned, President Yoon's impeachment trial is ongoing, and it kicked off on Tuesday at the Constitutional Court, but concluded within minutes due to his absence. Now, the bench rejected a request by the president's team to recuse a justice. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Meeting adjourned after 4 minutes. President Yoon Suk-yeol's first impeachment trial hearing wrapped up almost as soon as it began, as the leader did not show up before the Constitutional Court on Tuesday.
As the respondent is absent, proceedings will not continue today in accordance with Article 52, Paragraph 1 of the Constitutional Court Act.
Yoon's absence was largely expected as his legal team announced he would not attend the first session and submitted a series of objections to the court. These include an objection to the first hearing and the court's decision to fix 5 hearing dates without consultation. It also filed a request to recuse Justice Chung Gae-sun, who was appointed to the bench this month. Yoon's team cited her connections to the opposition Democratic Party and her husband's close association with former Chief Justice Kim Il-soo, who is co-chair of the National Assembly's panel of lawyers trying to impeach the president. The court's acting Chief Justice said the bench rejected the recusal request and said the court's announcement of multiple hearing dates aligns with the Constitutional Court Act. Speaking to reporters, Yoon's attorney Yoon Gak-keun expressed deep regret and indicated that the president's team will continue to contest the proceedings.
The rush scheduling of hearings is unnecessary, even if hearings were scheduled through February 4th. There was ample opportunity during today's or the January 16th hearing to consult with and notify the defense counsel. Such omissions cast doubt on the fairness and neutrality of the trial process.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly's impeachment team called for swift proceedings and for the president himself to attend his trial.
The respondent is expected to continue employing various measures, even after today, in order to hinder the swift and smooth progression of the trial.
Yoon's absence at the first hearing means that the session has been rescheduled for Thursday. Now, if he skips the hearing a second time, the court can proceed without him. However, it's unclear how far the arguments can proceed at this point. During their 2 pre-trial sessions, President Yoon's lawyers and the National Assembly failed to narrow their differences over the main grounds for impeachment due to various sticking points. First, Yoon's lawyers say that the National Assembly's panel removing charges of insurrection as a main argument for impeachment makes no sense, as the Assembly's motion to remove him from power cited insurrection as a major reason. The Constitutional Court is expected to decide on this matter. Yoon's side also argues that his declaration of martial law was an act of state under executive authority and therefore not subject to judicial review. In a 60-page document submitted to the court on Tuesday, the team justified its reasons for declaring the decree, citing election fraud, the opposition-led parliament's disruption of governance, and the state of emergency. Furthermore, Yoon's team filed an objection to the court's decision to obtain records from ongoing trials and criminal investigations over the martial law declaration, arguing that it violates the Constitutional Court Act. By raising procedural issues and various complaints, observers say Yoon's legal team appears to be angling for more time, having criticised the court's focus on holding expedited proceedings. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
U.S. Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth has labeled North Korea as a nuclear power that threatens global stability, while stressing the importance of U.S. allies taking on more burden sharing to foster healthy partnerships. Yoon brings more.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth described North Korea as a threat to global stability, calling it a nuclear power. Hegseth made the comments in reply to advanced policy questions submitted to the Senate Armed Services Committee ahead of his confirmation hearing for the role of 29th Secretary of Defense. Hegseth wrote that North Korea's nuclear weapons, missile development, and growing cyber capabilities threaten stability in the Korean Peninsula, the Indo-Pacific, and globally. He added that the threat is especially concerning due to North Korea's proximity to U.S. allies hosting American troops, and if confirmed, he will request both classified and unclassified briefings on the DPRK threat. His use of nuclear power differs from the term nuclear weapon state under international law, as it includes countries with nuclear weapons that are not officially recognized as countries with nuclear weapons. With him potentially running the U.S. Department of Defense, overseeing over 3 million people and a budget of nearly $900 billion, Hector's remarks signal a clear recognition of the threat posed by North Korea's nuclear capabilities. He also said he plans to reassess the readiness of U.S. military forces globally and ensure adequate funding to strengthen U.S. posture and deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. This suggests the Trump administration may seek higher defense contributions from South Korea for U.S. forces stationed in the country. Regarding China's military threat, Hegseth emphasized the need for greater global burden sharing, along with increased investment in the U.S. defense industrial base. Hegseth emphasized that strong alliances require mutual responsibility and cannot be one-sided, noting that the U.S. will push for increased defense spending and burden sharing from allies. He also said that strengthening these partnerships through consistent cooperation is key to enhancing mutual trust. Yoon, Arirang News.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says an Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal is right on the brink and closer than it's ever been before. Lee Seung-jae reports.
After over a year of fighting, Israel and Hamas may finally agree to a ceasefire deal. According to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday, a ceasefire deal is closer than it's ever been before.
Over the past several weeks, our intensive efforts have brought us to the brink of full and final agreement. On Sunday, the United States, Qatar, and Egypt put forward a final proposal. The ball is now in Hamas's court. If Hamas accepts, the deal is ready to be concluded and implemented. I believe we will get a ceasefire.
Speaking at the Atlantic Council in Washington, the top U.S. envoy also laid out the plan in which he says a reformed Palestinian Authority would lead Gaza and bring in international partners to help establish and run an interim government. Blinken added that the Biden administration will hand over the post-war management plan for Gaza to President-elect Donald Trump's team. This would include details of an interim security mission, including international forces and Palestinians. The Associated Press says that Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire, as well as the release of dozens of hostages. According to officials involved in the negotiation, the talks are in their final stages. The call for a ceasefire is also coming from a small number of Israeli soldiers who are refusing to fight if a ceasefire agreement isn't reached. Some 200 soldiers signed a letter vowing to stop fighting if the Israeli government didn't secure a ceasefire. The troops say they want others to come forward. Speaking to the Associated Press, a number of soldiers said the declaration comes as Palestinians were indiscriminately killed during the 15-month-long conflict, with many soldiers being ordered to burn or destroy homes that posed no threat. Meanwhile, on Tuesday night, thousands gathered at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square, a public plaza located in front of the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, where families of the hostages taken during the October 7, 2023 attack have made camp. Protesters sang and played music on stage, with those present anticipating a ceasefire deal that would finally bring back their loved ones. 94 hostages are still being held by Hamas since being taken on October 7, 2023. The 15-month-long conflict has also led to the death of over 45,000 Palestinians. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tammy.
So, Ji-hee, let's begin today with the updates in the Ukraine war. Now, Ukraine claims that it's launched its largest air attack of the war so far. Tell us more.
That's right. So Ukraine's military struck several targets deep inside Russia on Tuesday in what it called the most massive air attack since the start of the war. Ukraine deployed over 100 drones and more than a dozen cruise missiles targeting infrastructure in cities far from the Ukrainian border. Damage was reportedly caused at gas storage tanks that served an airbase for Russian bomber planes, as well as ammunition depots and chemical plants. In response, Russia has accused Ukraine of energy terrorism following an alleged drone attack on the Turk Stream pipeline, a crucial channel for Russian gas to Europe. Amid the latest tensions, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius visited Kyiv to reaffirm Germany's unwavering support for Ukraine. Over in France, Prime Minister Francois Bayrou on Tuesday proposed reopening discussions on President Emmanuel Macron's 2023 pension reform, which raised the retirement age from 62 to 64. The move aims to secure support from left-wing lawmakers to pass the 2025 budget. Bayrou emphasized the necessity of restructuring the pension system to stabilize France's public finances, highlighting the country's significant debt and the goal to reduce the public deficit to 5.4% of GDP in 2025. The proposal comes after months of protests and political turmoil over the pension changes. Bayrou's approach includes engaging with labor unions and opposition parties to find common ground and warning against modifications that could exacerbate France's financial challenges. NATO has launched a new mission, the Baltic Sentry, to protect critical undersea infrastructure in the Baltic Sea amid rising concerns over potential sabotage. This follows recent incidents involving damage to undersea cables and pipelines following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As part of the mission, NATO countries will deploy frigates, maritime patrol aircraft, and naval drones to increase surveillance and deterrence capabilities. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stated the mission aims to deter and detect any potential threats to undersea assets.
The bitter cold returns to much of the country, with cold wave alerts reissued in many central regions. Feels like temperatures in the capital are much colder and highs will stay below freezing. Please stay warm. Meanwhile, Jeolla-do Provinces could see lingering snow flurries through the first half of the day. Drive with extra care. Jeju will be rainy until the evening. A dry weather advisory remains in place for the East Coast, and it will be quite windy in the west of Jeolla-do Province today. Then afternoon highs in the capital will be nearly 7 degrees lower, topping out at -1 degree here in Seoul. Busan at 4 degrees with a dry advisory in place for a week. Most parts will be under sunny skies with decent air quality. A snowy day is in the forecast for tomorrow in western regions, including here in Seoul. Then the cold snap should subside tomorrow afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have for now, but we will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
Hi, Chef Ryan here. Today we're going to make hotdog, a winter seasonal street food staple here in Korea. Oh.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day. We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, January 15th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Park Yoon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And Im Sang-yeong.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to begin with our keyword news of the day. Our keyword for this Wednesday is wildfire. The city of Los Angeles has been battling wildfires for over a week now. The fires have led to at least 24 deaths and displacement of tens of thousands of residents. And firefighters are currently tackling several active fires, including the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire. The situation is expected to worsen, with forecasts predicting powerful winds that could exacerbate the fires before conditions improve later in the week. And officials are urging residents to have an evacuation plan and are advising against activities that could spark new fires. So, Sang-yeong, for our viewers' information, what could be some activities that could help people to prevent fires from becoming bigger?
Yeah, so first I pay my condolences to those who lost their lives and properties due to the wildfire. And as we have just saw in the screen, the scale of the wildfire was really massive. And I think we've always seen such wildfires in every winter since the humidity gets lower. And South Korea is no exception to this danger. And we always need to stay cautious against this wildfire. Now, to prevent the further spread, the LA Fire Department said that people shouldn't burn woods outside or leave smoldering coals after cooking outside. Also, they mentioned that people should avoid trimming dry grass because the machinery can create sparks leading to fire as well. And don't leave your vehicle over dry grass. The underpart of the vehicle, which is hot, can ignite the grass. And lastly, be careful when you dispose cigarettes, which can also create fire.
Right, and I think that this is more worrisome because the fires are currently active. As mentioned earlier, firefighters are still battling with these blazes. So in light of the widespread impact, many are seeking ways to assist those who have been affected and are being affected. So Kyun, how can we help?
Well, local communities can step up to help those affected, and we're seeing this right now as neighbors of those who have lost everything in LA fires come out to the streets to provide free food, clothing, a lot of clothing actually, and even water for free. And for those who are overseas like us, we cannot actually physically be there to volunteer and help out. We can always donate money through to the American Red Cross. And I just hope that the fire dies down as soon as possible so that no more people are affected and harmed by the fire.
Definitely. All right, that was our keyword news for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today is time to focus on the latest lifestyle trends of our generation. Let's start by taking a look at the screen.
One topic that consistently comes up when we talk about the lifestyle trends of our generation is investment. Our generation has been heavily drawn to investing, whether it's stocks, cryptocurrency, or even gold. But now, some young people are taking it a step further, channeling nearly all their assets into investment products.
Right, so investment trends have been a topic that we've dealt several times on Newsgen last year. So we're going to first start by catching up from where we left off last year in 2024, as it's 2025. So have there been any notable changes in your investment portfolios lately? Because for me, no.
Okay, so there has been a lot of changes for me.
Oh, really?
So it has been around 2 years since I last started making investments. And I'm one of those people who started to make stock price investment, jumping onto the bandwagon because my friends around me began to do so. So right now, 60% of my assets go into bank deposits, and the rest, 40%, is for the investment in Bitcoins and stock markets. So far, I've been investing without much knowledge about the market economy, but I really want to, starting from this year, I really want to study more about the financial market. So I just invested in products that were mostly popular among other people, and I kind of got swayed around by the media as well. So starting from this year, I'm trying to learn how to make wise investment.
Well, good luck on your investment journey for 2025. So it seems that Sang-yeong is expanding his investment portfolio. Now to you, Kyun, I remember that we talked about a similar topic last year. It was not so long ago. So have there been any changes to your investment portfolio?
The latest investment that I made was in Korean stocks, but this was early December last year, which wasn't the best time to invest in Korean stocks.
A lot of volatility.
A lot of volatility, which, because of the political turmoil that started from December 3rd, right after the declaration of martial law. So I put that aside and looked into the US stock market again, as I always do, especially in quantum computer stocks and beneficiary stocks related to President-elect Donald Trump. So back then, the overall quantum computing sector was looking quite okay, and it was on the rise until NVIDIA boss Jensen Huang mentioned that in one of his speeches in CES 2025, I think that was last week in Las Vegas, he said that practical quantum computing is likely 2 decades away. And as soon as he said that, all the stocks that I was looking into just tumbled like 20–30%. Luckily, I didn't invest in any of those stocks because I didn't have, I guess, spare money to invest. But right now, I'm just really on a very tight budget, cutting back on my expenses and just being as frugal as I can. And I guess, sometimes when you don't have enough money to invest, spending less could be just one way of investing as well.
But you're still in the investment market, right?
I am, unfortunately.
Okay, so both of our panelists are investing in assets now, and as mentioned earlier, some young people are now going all in with their investments, which is quite different. We talked about here on Newsday multiple times that young investors are diving into the market, but not all in the past. So could you explain what this trend looks like and how widespread this is?
So this risky trend of investing has become quite prominent due to the economic downturn and, of course, the political uncertainties that we're experiencing here in Korea. We're seeing a growing number of young people in their 20s and 30s who are selling their homes or drastically minimizing housing costs, opting for monthly rentals called 월세 here in Korea, to invest all of their assets into stocks or cryptocurrencies. So instead of choosing the slower but safer growth of real estate, they're chasing the dream of becoming rich overnight. And this shift seems to have gained momentum, especially after Bitcoin's price surpassed $100,000 US dollar per coin for the first time in history late last year, fueling even greater expectations. And as of the first half of last year, the total market capital of virtual assets here in Korea exceeded 55 trillion won, which is roughly 37 billion US dollars. And according to a survey conducted last November by the platform SME Research Center at Kookmin University, 68% of respondents in their 20s and 30s believe the virtual asset market will continue to grow in the future. So let's take a look at the screen to see the reasons behind the aggressive investing in virtual assets by young people. So according to the survey that I mentioned a few moments ago, 55% of young Koreans said investing in virtual assets is the main method of increasing assets, while 28% thought of the potential for high returns, while some said it was good for its accessibility and, of course, the high entry barriers in real estate and stocks.
And I think that more investors could be drawn into this cryptocurrency market, especially as next week President-elect Donald Trump will start his second term. And during his campaign period, he mentioned that he would make the United States a crypto capital of the planet. That is what he said. So there are forecasts that Bitcoin prices could hit up to $250,000 this year, which could be another reason why more young investors could be entering this cryptocurrency market. Then, Sang-yeon, I also want to ask you, are there any other reasons why there is this growing investment interest among our generation, not only in cryptocurrency, but also in stocks?
Well, it all boils down to economic recession. So currently, the increase in our wage fails to catch up with the rise of inflation. And in fact, that's why the MZers are trying to diversify their source to make money on top of their salary. Also, our generation cannot live only with one job throughout a lifetime. There is a great possibility that the current generation might have to switch from 2 to 3 jobs throughout their lives. And because there is a lack of decent jobs in the market, there is a great possibility that the younger generation must compete with the older generation. However, in a competition like this, they are a no match for competition with the older generation when it comes to hiring. So as a result, MZers have no choice but to look for another financial portfolio sources. And as we saw during the pandemic, in times of crisis, assets like real estate and stocks tend to dramatically go up compared to currencies and cash. In a nutshell, financial assets have the biggest volatility, followed by market price, and finally the income is the last one to go up. And now you need to have a large amount of seed money in order to invest in real estate. So that's why MZers first invest in stocks and Bitcoins. There were also some success stories on social media, and I think these cases entice younger generation to investment.
Right, so despite these assets being unpredictable and having some sort of volatility, young people kind of think that it is a way to secure their assets or kind of expand their assets for the future. All right, so we've heard from our panelists and we're now going to hear from our viewers. We also asked them for their thoughts on this investment rush among young people. And here's what 3 of them said. Our first comment for this Wednesday is by Jelly K126. It's getting harder and harder to find a good job these days, so a lot of people my age are taking chances to try and diversify their income. But it's super important to know how much you can afford to lose if things go south. Benny D97 says, I think people want to build their own ways to earn money, especially by investing in crypto. It's a great opportunity for some, but invest carefully. After Rain 20 says, higher risk doesn't always mean higher returns. We have to remember that. All right, so to better understand this trend, we're now going to connect with an economics expert to our talks after a quick break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
We're back. Today we're joined by Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at Catholic University of Korea. Welcome, Professor Yang, to the show.
Happy to be here.
Great to have you. So, Professor Yang, from your perspective, what factors are driving this sudden investment boom among young people?
Okay, well, you talked about a lot of these factors earlier. I think usually assets which are very volatile are not thought of as good investment, but I think because we have seen in Korea some asset values going up very quickly. Like housing is the best example. People have gotten rich from owning housing units rather than saving up for a job. And because you mentioned that it's very hard for younger people to get good jobs now, so I think they want some asset whose value will go up very quickly, even if it is dangerous. And if you look at Bitcoins, when they were created around 2010, they were worth 9 cents per coin. That went up to $900 in 2016, $20,000 in 2019, and $96,500 yesterday when I checked. Now, this even though this has been a very high upward trend, it's been very, very volatile. You could literally, the value of the Bitcoin can fall to half its value in just days. But I think because it is very volatile and because buying housing units is so expensive, especially for younger people, some surveys say that you need somewhere between 14 to 20 years worth of average wages to buy a good housing unit, which is around Seoul area. So a lot of young people, I think, see these type of volatile investments, especially Bitcoin, as perhaps their only hope in getting ahead and climbing up the income ladder. Now, this phenomena, I think, has strengthened in recent years, last couple of years, because you have introduced some regulations into the Bitcoin exchange. Previously, the exchanges were vulnerable to embezzlement, bad management, but now, because of those problems, they are regulated, which not only makes the market seem safer, but also gives some measure of legitimacy because the government is regulating it. The introduction of exchange traded funds, ETF, made it easier to invest as well as make it, again, more legitimate. And then you mentioned the Trump administration policies. One of the policies that he is mentioning is the U.S. Bitcoin reserves. What that will do is the government will buy Bitcoins as part of U.S. reserves, which is, frankly, I don't think it's a good idea if you think about U.S. Economic stability. But because the government will be buying up Bitcoins, it will drive up prices. So at least in the short run, when the government is buying up those Bitcoins, it will drive up the price. So it looks like at least good opportunity and relatively sure opportunity to make money for the next year or two.
Right, Professor. Some have criticized this kind of trend, comparing it to gambling rather than genuine investing. What's your take on this?
I think it is very close to some type of gambling. Let me explain why. Investment, if you look at investment assets, take a look at, say, commodities like copper or oil, they usually have real demand and supply behind it. What I mean by real demand is that there's economic use for that product. So you need oil to drive, you need oil to make petrochemical products. So there's a real demand, that fundamental that lies behind that investment asset. On top of that, so you have fundamentals, but you also have speculative factors, which often makes the oil prices very volatile. If you think of, say, stocks, what acts as fundamentals are the profitability, present and future profitability of that company. So that acts as a fundamental, that acts as an anchor to prices. So even if you have speculation, it won't go too far away from that fundamental. Then you have the currency market. A lot of people point out that currencies are made by law. Dollars or Korean won. So in those cases, you do not necessarily have fundamentals, but what you do have are central banks, which try to keep the value of money, so that acts as an anchor. The thing about cryptocurrencies is that there's no anchor, there's no fundamentals. There's only speculation. So it really depends a lot on people's psychology. If people think the prices are going to go up, it's going to go up, and it's going to go up a lot. If people think that it's not going to go up, then the prices will drop, and prices will drop fast and big. And so in some sense, it is a very dangerous investment. Unlike gambling, perhaps, you don't know the odds, but in some ways, maybe it's like poker. It depends on the psychology of demand and supply. It doesn't have a real use, so it all depends on how people think the prices are going to move in the near future. And that means that you have to be able to read your competitor's mind. And I think the crypto coin investors are thinking, well, I can read people's minds better than average. But a lot of times, it doesn't turn out that way, I'm afraid. There's a lot of people who lose in poker because they cannot read other players' minds.
Okay, thanks, Professor, for making that interesting point. What advice would you give to young investors for them to navigate the investment market successfully? Because in the long run, investment is all about making stable source of income.
Right. What I tell my students is there's fundamentally two goals in investment, high returns and low risk. Problem is they're not compatible. So Bitcoin is an extreme example. Cryptocurrency is an extreme example where you can have high returns but extreme volatility. And if you need a steady income, that's not really a good thing to have. So if you are going to make these type of very volatile investment, then you better be able to lose the money and don't depend on other people to make up for it. You're out there risking your, it's a very risky endeavor, and you should be prepared to take the risk.
All right, Professor Yang, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as Professor Yang mentioned, low risk and high return, they're incompatible. So I want to ask you, as investors, what do you think about this balance between opportunity and danger?
Well, just by looking at Squid Game 2, the role that Im Siwon played when he actually enters the game, he asked for his phone back. The reason is because he needs to check the prices of his bitcoins.
Right.
He's lost a lot of money. And so if you see that kind of just from that drama, it can be very addictive because it's 24/7, especially I'm talking about cryptocurrency. You can check it 24/7 and it's highly volatile. So once you get stuck to it, you just got to constantly look at it, and it really reaches the point where it affects your lifestyle as well. So I think you need to be able to really manage the risk and be careful of not falling too deep into it and becoming addicted to kind of, investing, where it turns to a point where it starts becoming like a gamble.
Obsession, right, like gambling. What do you think, Sang-yeon?
Well, like Yoon mentioned, there are some cases when young investors fail in stock markets or bitcoins and eventually go bankrupt, and in worst cases, they commit suicide. And statistics say that average people have less than 5% chances to hit a jackpot with stock market. When stock prices fall down, people purchase more stocks as the average purchase price gets lower and expect a rebound in price. But overall, the loss could grow bigger in the long term. So risking your financial asset to hit a jackpot is not a clever idea. It's more like betting in a gamble, like the professor mentioned in the interview. So we must all stay cautious against excessive investment.
Right, always being cautious. And ending off today's discussion, very briefly, what are your thoughts on this investment trend?
I think moving away from short-term, like high return mindset, changing into kind of mid to long-term investment plan will help you just live your day on a daily basis, stress-free, because like I said, once you reach a point where, if you reach a point where you keep looking at your phone, it becomes very addictive, turns into gambling, it's going to affect your mental health, and eventually, if you don't end up making a profit, you'll be in a lot of debt, and it's going to affect all areas of your life.
Right. Do you also agree, Sang-yeon?
Yeah, I definitely agree. So you should definitely refrain yourself from making investment recklessly just because just because others are doing it, like I did a few years ago. So before making investment, you should thoroughly study about the financial market and start making investment when you have a decent amount of seed money with appropriate amount.
All right. Hope our discussion today helps you make healthy investments in the future. And that's all from NewsGen today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Park Ki-yoon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And Im Sang-yeon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.